Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will be creating all the tables for our learning management system. In the previous video, I showed you how to connect Supabase with Hasura. So now we will make these tables in Hasura itself. So let's get started by going to the data section. As you can see, Supabase_posters_learnit is the name I've given to my database. Inside which I have this folder called public, we will create the tables inside it. Start by clicking on this Create Table button. Now let's start with the first table, which will be for users. Here we will keep the basic profile information of the user, including their role. We will start with the first column called ID. ID is a column you'll find in all the tables, as it usually is the primary key in a table, and it is an auto-generated ID. Next is going to be the username, which will be a text, and it can have letters and numbers without any spaces. We shouldn't have a default value, as I want it to be unique. Now, this one is name, which can be either just the first name or the full name. I want the username of a user to be visible to other students or teachers, but the name will be visible to only the user itself. The profile pic will be a text, as saving an actual image will take a lot of storage, and we are using free services, so I'll try to be mindful of that. So we will either have the user upload the image somewhere else and add a URL link, or we will have some basic user images which the user can choose from, and we'll keep the path of it stored. Created_at will also only be seen by the user, and its value will be added by default when a new user is added. The final column in the users table will be of role. And I can't find a data type which will work as an enum, because the users can have two main roles, teacher or student. So we'll probably add some logic on the back end to make sure that this column can only have one of the two values. So this is it for the users table. I'll just add the ID column as the primary key, and we should be good to go to the next table. As you can see, the table is created and everything looks great. Now, let's create the next table, which will be the course table. First is always the ID, with the data type UUID. Now we start with the title, with the data type text. Then the description. Here, when the teacher creates the course, we'll be able to add all the details about their course. The category will help the students to search for different courses according to their choice. These categories can be like computer science, math, or more detailed categories like front-end or back-end, etc. Next column is called isPaid. This will be a Boolean, so a true or false value, which the teacher can decide if they want the course to be free or paid. Related to this isPaid column, we will have a column called price. So when the course is paid, the teacher will add a numeric value. Next up is an important column. It is teacher_ID. In the next video, we will add the relation of this to the users table, as this ID will point towards the ID of the teacher who created this course. Now we just add the primary key, and we should be done with this table. So the course and user tables are done. The next table we will make is for the assessments. As usual, we start with the ID. The assessments will also have a title. We can maybe add the feature that the students can search for an assessment. If you remember from the previous video, we will have three types of assessments: quiz, assignment, and question and answer test. In the description, the teacher can add some important details about the assessment which the student should know. The next column is created_at, which will be filled automatically. This column expire_at will be filled by the teacher if they want the assessment to have a last date, after which a student will not be allowed to submit anything. This field test_time is for when the teacher wants to have a set time, which will be a timer for the student when they start the assessment, to in how much time they have to complete it, like in a quiz, which can be of, let's say, 30 minutes. Note that test time is different than expire at, as test time will depend on when the student starts the test, and expire at depends on when the assessment was created. Then, we will have a course_ID. This field will point towards the course in which this assessment is present. Now, here's the thing, it's not necessary that an assessment will be part of a course, as an assessment can be a thing of its own which the student can browse. Hence why we needed the expire at, as it can be required for an assessment which is not part of a course, so when it expires we will remove it from the database. Then, there is teacher_ID, as each assessment will have a teacher who created the assessment. So the next column is a bit more complex, as it can have different values. It is called question and answer. It will be a data type of JSON-B, which essentially can be an object or array. And here it will be an array. I'll explain it in a sec with an example. So, each object will have a key called question, which will hold the question statement. And for the assignment type, this will be the only key value pair. Next key can be answer, which will hold the answer to the question. This field can be for the Q&A test and the quiz. And the last is options, which is solely for the quiz. This can have an array of strings for each option. So depending on the assessment type, we can have different data in the question_answer field, corresponding to the assessment type. This was the last column for the assessment table. Let's add the ID as the primary key. And that should be it for this table. Now that we have the three major tables, the next tables we will make will be related to these tables. Actually, before we start on a new table, there is one more thing to do in the course table, which I forgot. So let's modify the course table because we have to add one more column to it. This is called index. As the content inside the course will be placed in a different table, we have to have a way to know which content comes first and which lesson or assessment is in which chapter. Let's save this new column, and I'll then explain how this index is going to look like with an example. Now, each index is going to be an array of objects, and each object will represent one chapter. Let me create the array, and then I'll show how that will look like. So, we will have a key called chapter, and this will hold the name of the chapter. For example, chapter 1. Then there will be one called lesson or lessons, and which will be an array of ID, as the lessons will be stored in a separate table, and each lesson will have its own ID. And this is how the structure will be, as there will be multiple objects in the array of each course index, with their own chapter name. And we can also have another field for assessment, which will hold the ID of the assessment in this chapter. Or maybe I should add its ID in the lessons array, as then it will be placed in line with the lessons. All right, that should be it for the course table. We have all the fields. Now let's get back to the next table. Now this table will be for the lessons, and it will be called course lessons. We'll add the ID column first for the primary key, and this ID will be the one used in the index inside the course table. Next up, we'll have the title. And now for the most important part of the course, the content. This will hold all the actual content of this lesson. The teacher can put in text or URL of a video, maybe uploaded on Drive or anywhere else, or other documents can also be linked. Now we will add the course_ID. This will have the ID of the course in which this lesson is in. And I think this should be it for the course lesson table. Let's add the primary key and move on to the next table. Now, the two tables we have left are a bit different. They are used for a different purpose. These are called junction table, or join table, or bridge table. They are used in many-to-many relationship when we have to keep track of two values of two tables. I'll explain in a sec. Let's imagine if we have two students, student 1 and student 2. And we also have two courses, course 1 and course 2. Now let's say student 1 is enrolled in course 1, and he is also enrolled in course 2, which means a student can enroll in multiple courses, which makes sense. And also the same can be said for the courses, as each course can have multiple students who are enrolled in the same course. And this kind of the relationship between different tables is called many-to-many relationship, in which multiple records in one table are associated with multiple records in another table. And to keep track of these records, we need a separate table, which is the junction table, which we are making right now. This one will be called enrollment, and we will keep track of the students who are enrolled in any courses. The first field after ID we will have is student_ID, and this will be the ID from the users table. The next one will be called course_ID, and this will be the ID from the course table, and this will represent the course the student has enrolled in. This table will help the student to know which courses they are enrolled in, and the teachers to see which or how many students are enrolled in their courses. Then we have enrollment date, which will be filled automatically with the date when the record will be created. And these are all the fields we need for the enrollment table. Now let's finish this and add the final table for our project. Now this final table will also be a junction table. In this, the two tables whose records we have to keep track are users and assessments. Because one student can do submissions in multiple assessments, and one assessment can have submissions from multiple students. So this table will be called submissions, and it will have more columns compared to the enrollment table, just because of the requirements. For the last time, we create the ID column. We will have the student ID exactly the same as that in enrollment table. Then there will be the assessment ID to keep track of which assessment the student has submitted to. Then the submission date, which will be filled when the record is created. Next, we will have the marks percentage. This field will only be filled by the teacher and after the teachers has checked the submissions, and the students can later check their marks. Finally, the submissions. This is where the actual data of what the student has submitted will be. One more thing. While editing, I noticed I added the data type of submissions as text, but I think it should probably be a JSON-B. As for quiz or Q&A test, we will have multiple answers. I'll change it later. But that's it. We have created all the tables we need, and from the next video, we will make all the relationships and probably work on the permissions as well. Thank you guys for watching the video.